1, 2, 1, 2.
Hello, welcome to the Christchurch Fox Chapel podcast.
Ride to town, shoot 'em up, and keep on going. 'Cause I got a job to do, and I don't stop for no one. So get your gun, kiss your wife, and lock up your daughter. Don't let her fall in love with the pale rider.
Fastest growing conservative, evangelical, charismatic,
Anglican
pale riding podcast in the entire Fox Chapel area. Well,
It's wonderful.
we were looking for the theme tune for Pale Rider, the Clint
Yeah.
Eastwood movie. Don't think that's it, but it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I like it. It has a very bluegrassy kind of taste
Yeah,
to
it's
it.
awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. The Losieties are on vacation, so
They are. They're on vacation. They've been raptured, and so so we're having to find someone else.
yeah,
That's the only explanation.
obviously the two of us are still around. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
that's because they're premillennial, pre-tribulation rapturists, and we're mid-tribulation rapturists. Perhaps.
I don't know what I am, to be honest.
No, it's amazing how we've managed to survive all this Revelation talk without getting bogged down into this stuff.
Let's keep going.
Just keep
Not
going.
get bogged down into it.
Chapter 7 is an interlude, right? So you just preached chapter 6 and 8,
Mm-hmm.
the unsealing of the 7 seals,
Yeah.
the 6 seals, and then there's this interlude, and then the 7th seal.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the idea is that 6 is an incomplete number, which is why it's the mark of the beast, and 7 being complete and perfect is God's number.
And there's just, I just read a little bit before I came up here, and it somebody pointed out the 6th seal ends with a question. The day of the wrath has come, and who can stand?
Oh yeah,
Who can stand? And that's the question that really is standing throughout all of the seals. Like, these are really, really difficult things happening. The 4 horsemen riding, deception, war, pestilence, and death. Who can stand? And so John's going to answer that question.
Okay, well that helps a lot. So in this passage we have 2 images of groups of people saved, and then an explanation as to how. So he says, after this I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth and holding back the 4 winds of the earth, 4 being an image of globality. I think you had a different phrase for it, which I quite liked on Sunday, for what the symbol is.
Natural completeness.
Yeah, natural completeness. That's right. Yeah. There's definitely a nature kind of sort of thing going on here.
Yeah.
But the idea, I guess, when I was saying globality, I was trying to go for the same sort of thing. Like it's all of the earth.
Oh, here's a crazy question.
Mm-hmm.
Did they hold to a flat Earth?
Yeah, it's the only explanation.
They must have the 4 corners
It's a
of the
cube.
Earth. That assumes a flat Earth.
That's a really interesting thought.
Well, I mean, it doesn't make the scriptures wrong by any means. It's just that we need to recognize that the ancients had a different cosmogony, I think is the word, than...
Cosmogony?
Yeah, cosmogony. I learned that
How's
word
that different from cosmology?
Cosmology is how you put it all together.
The study of the cosmos. But cosmogony is like how it's physically...
is how you conceive of it, or what it is.
Ooh.
I don't know. That's what Bruce Walke says.
Oh,
He's smart.
that's really cool.
Cosmogony sounds cool.
Oh,
right?
I love it. It's a great name for a band.
But yeah, but they, they had different things. Because I mean, we have satellite pictures from space and stuff like that, and
Sir Francis Drake.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah,
circumnavigated the globe. So yeah, I think you've definitely got a classical image, but we still kind of use some of this idea.
Yeah,
We still even talk about the 4 corners.
yeah,
The 4 points of a compass.
farthest points.
The ends of the earth, which is of course ridiculous if it's a globe, but we have that kind of idea. So I think we are looking at something global, even if in a sense the ancients weren't picturing a sphere. in this case.
Global would not have been a word that the ancients would have used,
Probably not, no.
because they wouldn't have thought like this is a globe.
Right.
Anyways, that's just
This
interesting.
celestial ball.
Yeah.
And so you've got this idea of the whole earth, all of creation, all the things, having, if you like, some cataclysm brooding in the background and ready to be unleashed, and yet being held back. Because it says, I saw another angel, verse 2, ascending from the rising of the sun as this kind of extra strong force with the seal of the living God, and he called with a loud voice to the four angels who'd been given power to harm earth and sea.
Ooh, who are they?
I don't know.
Who are they? They venturing a guess?
No.
Can I venture a guess?
Yes.
What if they're the four horsemen?
Could be.
Four horsemen, power to harm earth and sea. Four angels, power to harm earth and sea.
You can go there. Harm is actually a word for criminality.
Ah.
It's adikos, adiko. It's the, I think is actually, I could be wrong, but I think it's the same word that's used of the criminals crucified either side of Christ. So it just means sort of baddies, wrongdoers.
To do wrong in earth and sea.
So you've got this, you've got these harmful characters. I need to double check that actually, because I'm starting to think that isn't the same word. Anyway, I'll dig into it. You've got these characters who have this power, this ability to cause harm, and yet obviously you've also got the sovereignty of God, who is holding that back, and is able to. The angel, the sun angel, says, "Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees," which is kind of funny. Stick that in there as well.
Those trees.
But I guess wind blows over trees, and trees are a natural thing, and we're talking about globality or complete nature.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. Until, so you can harm it later, but not yet. Until we've sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads.
Okay. So there, I just made a connection too. At the end of the sixth seal, they are, end of the fourth seal, the riders are given authority over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword and famine and pestilence. Right. So their power is limited and contained. And here again, you have the power of the four angels of the four winds being limited and contained. Right. But this is, if they are the same as the four horsemen, then that would mean that this takes place before all of that other stuff in the seven seals, right? Because these folks are sealed before the four horsemen ride and cause all the trouble.
Right.
I don't know.
No, yeah, I go with it. And by the way, also the wrong word is kind of connected to those criminals who were known as wrong workers. They were workers of wrong, so it is the kind of root word. Okay, so bad guys.
Bad guys.
Not able yet to wrong the earth. God is in his sovereignty going to allow evil at some point to proliferate and even do this work, but at the moment being held back by him. We're in between the seals. It's not yet. Near the end.
Okay.
But it's not yet happened. And in fact, the end is being postponed or held back or prevented or whatever until it's time.
Yeah.
And in particular, until the servants of God have been sealed. And that sense of sealed, I think, you mentioned this again in your sermon, the imprint of a signet ring into a wax seal.
Because he's breaking the seven seals.
Right. So as the scroll is sealed, so also are humans sealed, imprinted with the image of God, authenticated.
This is funny. I've always imported a different kind of idea of sealed.
Or like a marine animal?
No.
I don't. I think that's an unusual translation.
Slapped across the face with a flipper. No.
Yeah.
No, I always thought of like a tomb is sealed, right? Like locked in. But this, I guess it's sort of a similar idea, but sealed as an envelope kind of means, this is probably thinking along the same way, kind of sealing as the scroll, which is like the wax signet ring thing.
I mean, yes, and This my image, you've all got our own images. Mine is probably wrong as well. I'd always thought of it as almost seared, like you take a steak or something and you seal it in that way.
Yeah.
In a sense of sort of being set. Or in some way, which is probably not. That's just what it's looked like in my mind as I've pictured it. But I think it's wrong. I think the word sealed, as we're finding out, is like the scroll is sealed with the signet ring imprinted in the wax. And only God, the bearer of the ring, is able, the Lamb is able to open it.
So it means claimed or claimed,
identified.
And identified.
And this is the same thing. We also have been imprinted with the image of the King. And therefore no one can unseal us, or deseal us. That's a better word. No one can deseal us. No one can unseal the scroll. No one can deseal the believers. It is, as you really dig into the grammar and you look at the tense, you start to see, okay, this is a thing that's been done and it can't be undone. It's set.
That's what John is saying throughout, what Jesus says in John 10, right? Like, I have my own and no one can take them away.
No one can take them from my grasp. Yeah,
because only I have the authority.
He keeps his own, right?
Yeah.
This is 3 John or something. Is that right? Yeah, one of the letters.
Oh, I guess it is in one of the letters too. I was just thinking of John chapter 10, but yeah.
Great.
Well, John wrote Revelation, so
that would make sense.
Yeah.
So this image of the seal is being used in a slightly different sense now of us or of them, the servants of our God. And on their foreheads, their image, their face is imprinted or imputed with the image of the Creator. So this is really cool. And not only is that image imputed upon them, but also it's not breakable by anyone else. It can't be removed. So we look like the King.
Can we just state the obvious and say that this is not talking about a literal, like, physical mark on your forehead?
Yeah, it's not barcodes.
People sometimes think that, that the mark of the beast, that's going to come in a later chapter. Yeah. It's like there'll be a barcode put on everyone's forehead. This is clearly imagery that is evoking a lot of different thought patterns and ideas. And I
do agree with you. The however, and I probably need a however to my however, is that the things that are written about in Revelation will in some sense actually happen. Indeed, they may already be happening. Like you said, all prophecy has an immediate, intermediate, and ultimate fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And so this prophetic book has an immediate fulfillment in the sense of what Rome was doing to the Jews in AD 90. Yeah. 96, whatever. It has an intermediate fulfillment, and that may well be what we're going through now. And it has an ultimate fulfillment when Christ returns. Yeah. So although most of these things are highly symbolic, it is plausible that within the unfolding of God's time, some of these things will seem very obvious when they happen.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And so, you can posit the idea of, say, the internet or global communications or whatever, creating an environment physically where some of these realities really could come to pass more readily. Sure. The idea of needing a mark in order to purchase things and hyperinflation happening through warfare, well, those don't seem so far-fetched anymore.
Yeah. I guess my point is that we need to first read Revelation in its context, in the context of its own book. And then later on, if something happens that kind of corresponds almost with the literal wording in the book, we can go in the new heavens and the earth, we'll be like, well, that's cool. Right. I don't think you nailed it there.
I don't think if you get a corporate Amex, you're somehow banned from salvation. Yeah. However,
MasterCard, you might be.
It could be.
Kidding.
There's a thought though, isn't there? Christians are going to use Diners Club, but there's a thought that perhaps some of the things that we see described in this book will manifest in very obvious ways at certain times. And like you, I don't think this is about barcodes on foreheads, but a time will come when people may well be frightened away from their faith because an authoritarian government has got some system in place that makes it very difficult to be a believer.
Yeah.
If you were reading this book in China right now, if you could get a copy of it, you would say, oh wow, this is probably going to be wrapped up in about 3 weeks, because you've got cameras in sanctuaries, you've got pastors having their sermons policed. I think the latest thing is that you have to positively promote the doctrine of the Chinese Communist Party in your sermons
and prove it.
And prove that you've done it. So I think you can see how at different times in history and different places in history, it's really looked like it's happening now. And yet, evidently, the Lord has not returned. And so we have to be careful not to say, we've cracked the code and he's coming back on Tuesday.
Yeah.
All right. So I heard a number of the sealed. Okay, this isn't important. I heard a number of the sealed, 144,000 sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. The number 144,000 is symbolic, as they all are. 12 times 12 is 144. 144 times 1,000 is 144,000. So what? Well, a 12 is a symbol of completeness.
Yeah.
A 12 times a 12 is a symbol of completeness. And 1,000 is a symbol of a lot. And maybe even a symbol of perfectedness, because 1,000 is a 10 times a 10 times a 10. And so there's this sense of something completely, and not just completely, but also bigly.
Yeah.
So another way of putting it is a lot.
So Jesus does a similar thing in the Gospels, right? We see this numbers having representative function, right? Where Peter says to him, Lord, how much should I forgive someone? Up to 7 times? And he's saying, like, should I have perfect forgiveness? And Jesus says, not 7, but 70 times 7. So that's 7 times 7, perfectly perfect.
Amplified
times
by
10.
Right. Amplified by completeness.
Which is big,
right.
Perfectly perfect. This is saying the 12, which is another like complete number, times 1,000, that's 10 times 10 times 10.
Right.
So the biggest possible, biggest.
Right. And also
complete.
Water, maybe just as a kind of a seasoning, maybe a garnish, is this idea of the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 apostles of the New Testament. So you've got this possible idea of also the globality of saved people of God, maybe.
And
we certainly get that, because it turns out there's 12,000 from the tribe of Judah, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin were sealed. So 12,000 from each tribe.
Genealogies were important in the ancient, among the Jews.
They were. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on right here in this list. There's 20 Old Testament lists of the tribes. Interestingly, in 18 of them, there are slight differences in the order of who gets named when. So it was common to name them differently.
Yeah.
This list is named really oddly. So you could just say, well, it's just another goofy list. But there's some real peculiarities in this particular list. So first of all, it begins with Judah. That's not the firstborn of these tribes. However, it is the king's tribe. It's where the Lion of Judah is from.
Yeah, Messiah.
It's a messianic tribe. And when Israel divides, when the kingdom of Israel divides after Solomon, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. Yeah. Judah, the smaller sort of portion of divided Israel, outlives all the other tribes who are taken away into Assyrian exile. And Judah goes into Babylonian Israel, but the story doesn't extinguish. Judah returns after exile to a broken Jerusalem and begins to rebuild. In the books of Haggai and Malachi, you read about that, as well as Ezra and Nehemiah. So begin with Judah because, in a sense, that's the surviving tribe, but also in a sense because that's the one through whom the messianic promise, the Davidic covenant, is fulfilled. So anyway, Judah comes first. That's intriguing. Here's another intriguing thing. Manasseh is named. Manasseh is a half tribe who was one of the two sons.
Ephraim and Manasseh.
Ephraim and Manasseh are both half tribes of Joseph. And so often these lists will put Manasseh or Ephraim near the end or together or whatever because they're half a tribe. But as you go down the list, you'll see the penultimate name there, Joseph, Well, Manasseh is included within Joseph because Manasseh is Joseph's son.
And Dan is missing.
And Dan is missing. So Dan has been taken out. Ephraim, the half-tribe, has been taken out. Manasseh is included 1.5 times. And Levi, who doesn't have any land because they're the Levitical priests, gets mentioned on the list.
Yeah.
So weird. Dan missing. Ephraim sort of named twice. Manasseh sort of named twice. Ephraim not named at all, and Judah at the beginning. It's a weird list.
Yeah. It is not a normal. It's not just your standard.
It's not standard weird.
He's not copy pasted.
No.
An Israelite like genealogy kind of thing.
So one bloke thinks, and I think he's completely wrong, that Manasseh is named in place of Dan because the original manuscript said man instead of Dan, and it was an abbreviation. Lovely idea, but there's some other long and silly words in here that weren't abbreviated, so I'm not buying it. And it's not a word that they would be unfamiliar with. So I think that's probably jibber jabber. It looks to me to be highly deliberate that this list.
Who said that?
Oh, it's probably Bultmann. Let's assume.
Yeah, Bultmann.
Who never existed. He's just a shadowy figure that scholars posited in quest of the historical Bultmann. Yeah. So I think that this list is deliberately kind of messed with a bit. And what's that trying to tell us? Dunno. But this is the podcast, so we can make stuff up. And personal theory.
Yeah.
I think we're being told that although God's salvation of the Jews is completely complete and bigly complete, it's a lot bigger and more complete than you think.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfectly complete in that all the right people are saved, not perfectly complete in the sense that all the people are saved. There are those who are excluded, actually. So Dan was notorious for being particularly idolatrous. Perhaps that's why it's missing.
Samson comes from Dan, right?
Really?
That's what I read.
Knowledge. Thank you. That's helpful to know. There's also a possibility that I think in chapter 2 of Revelation, John talks about a synagogue of Satan. Accuses one of the churches of being a synagogue of Satan. In other words, you look like a church or a synagogue, but you're not. You're actually an evil church. John accuses them earlier in the letter. So you can be part of the worshipping covenant community of God in a peripheral sense and not actually be covered by the covenant. You could be a church goer and not saved. You could be a Jew and not saved. There are lots of examples throughout the 39 kings of the divided kingdom of Israel and Judah who were described in a summary sentence as evil.
Yeah.
He did what was wrong in the eyes of the Lord. He walked in the ways of Ahab and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord.
And
so
we were talking about this earlier. Jesus says that you think that you're secure because you're sons of Abraham. Don't you know that God can raise up from these stones children of Abraham? Means being a Jew is not something that is just merely outward,
right?
But being a Jew is something. Being of Israel is something that is inward and of the heart. That is one of the Apostle Paul's major theological points. And it jives with the rest of
Galatians
too.
And Romans, right?
So here's the question. Is this referring, is this list right here referring to the modern nation state is this referring to the ethnic Jews who will be saved at the end of all days?
Absolutely yes and no. Yeah. In the sense that the complete number of completed Jews will be big, and it will be bigger than you think. And yes, however, there are those who are excluded. There will be saved Jews and non-saved Jews, because there are people missing from this list, and there are many included within it too. So yes, let's pick someone. Let's pick someone we can be fairly certain of. Samuel, he's a Jew.
The biblical Samuel.
The biblical Samuel.
Yeah,
he's saved.
Yeah.
Moses.
Ahaz.
Yeah. Ahab is an interesting one, right? Because he's dodgy.
Yeah.
And yet, he kind of gets his act together a bit toward the end. But his wife not. But I don't think his wife was a Jew. So I think what we find with this list is that clearly God's promises to his covenant people, his old covenant people, the Jews, are kept. And they are in the throne room, in eternity, in salvation, getting all the good stuff. But just because you happen to be an ethnic Jew living in the tribe of Issachar 2,000 years before the birth of Christ, maybe my timeline's a bit wrong, 1,000 years before the birth of Christ, that doesn't somehow innately just force God's hand and guarantee you access. If you were a God-hating idolater who was hanging around at the temple, but in fact being evil and non-repentant, then no. So there you go.
So this is not, I'm sort of forcing our hand a little bit. This is not about, this is a hot passage, especially since the 1940s with the establishment of the nation state of Israel.
Right.
People are like, oh, it's the 144,000. This is this is not about ethnic Israel to the exclusion of Gentiles.
Correct. And it's not all Jews ever, because the 144,000 are sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel.
Yeah.
It's a number from them. I mean, the Jehovah's Witnesses famously claimed that this was them. In the Watchtower magazine, the 144,000 were actually the Jehovah's Witnesses. It was a great theory until they got the 144,001 member of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And then they were like, right, okay, so either we have an imposter in our midst, or we've over-literalized the text. This is the same magazine that on, I think, 7 different occasions has actually declared the date of the end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we can probably say from that false prophecy that they've overread the text.
Yeah, or they underread the part where Jesus says, no one knows the day or the hour.
Yeah, well, that's a bit of a sticking point, isn't it? So what we know is this. God has made a promise to the old covenant people of God, the Jews, and he has perfectly, from that group of people, saved completely a complete number that is much bigger than you think, but it plainly is not everyone automatically in just by virtue of their birth. Moving on.
Wait, can I add one more thing?
Yes.
They're not saved in this, though. They're sealed.
Okay.
And they're sealed before the chaos ensues on the earth. So this is like from beforehand. Also, I think it's notable, I heard the number of the sealed. So there's hearing and seeing is
next
like a
he
big
looks.
thing. Next,
yes.
After this, I looked in verse 9.
Right, and this will lead us into a discussion of whether this is the same group of people plus a new group, or a completely separate group.
Yeah.
So after this, I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number. So there you go. It's not a big number; it's unnumbered. From every nation, it's like from the tribes. From every nation, from tribes and peoples and languages. So this is not all humans ever. It's not universal.
Yeah.
But it is from everywhere. So there are no groups. There are no groups without representation in this image.
There is no category of humanity that is, or no situation or category that lacks the ability, or that lacks the opportunity to come into the Lamb's people.
At least ethnically speaking. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, in this image. So, in fact, actually, beginning with this image of the 4 winds and globality, we have now another image of globality, that there are those large number, an unnumbered group from every possible nation in history and in the world, of every different colour and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, and clothed in white robes, and with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb." So images of purity, clothed in white robes, images of victory, waving palms,
Yeah.
crying out about salvation, and worshipping not only God, who may well be the first member of the Trinity in this instance, but
Yeah.
also the Lamb, Jesus, worshipping the Lamb as God and with God.
Salvation belongs to our God and to the Lamb. Yeah.
All the angels were standing around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures that we looked at a couple of weeks ago, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshipped God.
Oh wait, so we're in the same heavenly throne room that we were at the beginning of chapter 4.
Back
We've
again.
not left. I don't think we've left, have we?
Ooh. Well, it feels like we've sort of interrupted ourselves, though.
Yeah, a lot of different visions, but
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, in other words, to flesh out a little bit more, who's there?
yeah,
Well, there's this first group of people, which are plainly from the Old Covenant people of God. That list of the 12 times 1,000. Now we have this unnumbered multitude from everywhere. So not just ethnic Jews, but actually ethnic anyone's. Even Devonians.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
the Cornish.
Oh, the Cornish.
Yeah, even the Cornish.
Them and their game hens.
Yeah, that's it. There's the thought that Tarshish, where the end of the world, was actually Padstow in Cornwall. It's just a thought. It's not easily supported. But this idea that even people from obscure lands with strange accents are included in this image of globality. Not to say that all Cornishmen are saved.
Yeah.
I knew a bloke, pretty dodgy, doubt he's there, but many, far more than you might think. I think that, I don't know about you, I bounce from my mind, from time to time about myself, thinking, crumbs, am I saved or not? Mm-hmm. And I go through days going like, yeah, I'm well in, and days where I'm like, oh, I don't know, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we're being told here is, the good news is, there's going to be a lot more people there than you think. I think this is erring on the side of generosity and inclusion.
Well, the limits of his mercy. I heard this in a movie Calvary, that he says the limits of his mercy have not been set. I love that.
Wow,
I just love that. Like
I think they have been, though.
Yeah,
we're foreknown.
It sounds poetic, though, doesn't it? Okay.
Apart from the fact it cuts horribly across
the
biblical
opening
chapters
witness
of several books of the Apostle Paul.
The limits of his mercy extend beyond your conception.
It's a more prosaic sentence, but it's probably more theologically accurate.
Yeah, I like
your version.
Yeah, I like that. I like that version, but yeah, it's not technically true. It has all been said.
The fact it's false. It sounds great.
Well, and it also, apart from the fact that in the first part of this chapter, the 144,000 are sealed from beforehand, and so there's a sealing that precedes the saving.
Right. Okay, so there is yes. Well, then I think you've nailed it there. So go ahead. This second group, is that what you're going to get onto?
No, I was just going to say, I was going to offer a theory.
Why not? That
maybe the 144,000 is all of God's people throughout history, given, and the special reference is paid to how they all come out of Abraham.
Right.
And then
yes,
in the end, it's sort of is from the perspective of the end. They're all now, they've come through.
Right.
And
right,
and it's the emphasis is on how they've come out of every tribe and nation into the people of God, and so maybe perhaps it's the same group of people. Yeah, saith Craig Kester.
I think Kester might be right.
He says what he says.
Okay,
sorry, it was a bit of a setup, but. Just as references to lion and lamb enable readers to consider the same person, Christ, from two different perspectives, the references to the 144,000 and to the great multitude allow readers to see the same community, Christ followers, from two different perspectives. The community of faith encompasses people from many tribes, nations, and languages. That's the second part. Yet this same community represents the fulfillment of God's promises concerning the preservation of Israel. That's the first part. If the promises concerning the Lion of Judah are not negated but fulfilled through the blood of the Lamb, then the promises concerning the tribe of Judah and other nations, other tribes, are not negated but fulfilled through the multitudes that are redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. I think
that's a really, really good answer. So to back up just a little, the question is the first list, the 144,000, a completely different group from the second list, which is those from every nation and all the tribes and peoples? And /or, are they the same list? /or, is there just some overlap between them? Those are the basically the scholarly questions.
The different categories.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it Jews and Christians? Is it just all one, or is it that Christians basically are Jews? And in the sense that we are grafted in as children of Abraham by faith, and in the sense that Abraham actually was saved through his faith, according to Hebrews, you can say, well, however you kind of really pass this out, basically it's the same group of people, because there is not a Jewish heaven and a Christian heaven next to each other, right? There's one people of God, old and new covenant people.
And and maybe this mixing up the genealogy is John's way of saying, hey, listen, and putting Judah first is like saying, listen, the Messiah has come, and the nature of what it means to be Israel has now changed for everyone.
Okay, so we are the Judah people.
There doesn't continue to be a separate Israel that is separate from Christ after Christ comes.
Right.
There's only one people of God.
Right. Which is why when I see Messianic Jews, that is Jews who have come to worship Jesus as Messiah, I get very, very excited about that, because they've moved toward this worship, this image that we have right here. But when I see Christians heading that direction, I get worried. And I think maybe this is a little bit like Paul's discussion in Galatians about returning to a yoke of slavery. The answer is not to start trying to Christians make yourself into a Jew in order to really make sure you're on both lists.
Culturally and ethnically. Yeah.
The answer is to focus on the Lamb, whoever you are.
Yeah.
And the good news is that those who lived and died in faith, knowing and loving the Lord before the actual birth of Christ, are still saved by the Lamb anyway.
Yeah.
He is the true fulfillment of all of the law.
Yeah.
Of which they just saw a kind of pre-shadow.
Mm-hmm.
So two lists, they may overlap. I think they probably do. They may well contain one another and allude to one another. And as you pointed out, one is heard of, one is seen. We can't necessarily pass out every little granular detail of this and know for sure. But basically, the perfect number of people that God wants to save will be saved. And it's a way bigger crowd than you think. And it's going to be way more diverse than you can imagine, because it's every kind of type of person.
Yeah.
So there it is. And now, what do they do and how do they do it? Basically, the last two questions in the passage. So what do they do? Well, unlike this very big and yet not perfected number of 12, we have a 7 now, which is a perfect number. They're worshipping perfectly. They say, blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to God forever and ever. Amen. So 7 things that they worship God for: blessing, glory, wisdom, thanksgiving, honor, power, might.
I always just thought that was unnecessarily verbose when I would read that. I never actually counted.
I think it's necessarily verbose. And well, as you know, counting is a big thing that scholars do. It's like one of the chief things that scholars are for, is counting.
Yeah, you got to count.
And they did count this. I didn't count it.
Yeah, it's good. It was a good call.
So lots of stuff about who he is and what he does. He's glorious. He's perfectly wise. We've seen this omniscience. The power of God. We've seen this omnipotence. There's a lot to be said, but there's nothing left out, I think, on this list. There's no facet of God that we're not worshipping him for in eternity.
There's all kinds of good things that we enjoy every moment of every day that are from God, but we don't attribute them to God or give him thanks for them.
Yeah.
And so it's like this is in this final moment, there's all these people and they're finally getting it. They're finally understanding that it all comes from God and goes to God, and he's the one who's deserving of of all of it. So it's it's just a beautiful vision.
To move on to the last bit, so what's going on? One of the things that strikes me is that sometimes at very significant moments in our communal life, there are seemingly very prosaic and even sometimes humorous interactions. In an awkward moment waiting before a funeral, there can be very tender and almost silly discussions at times, that all the emotions are dialed up.
Yeah.
And there's this this is a huge moment, of course, worshipping around the throne. It's unparalleled and just magnificent. And there's this really weird little conversation goes on.
I love John's line in this.
So one of the elders addressed me saying, "Who are these clothed in white robes? And where have they come from?"
I said to him, "Sir, you know."
You know. I don't really know what's going on here, but like, is his mate going, "Hey, look at all this," and then John's going like, "Yeah, cool." Is that it?
I think this might be just reporting what he said.
This actually happened. This discussion actually happened in all of this.
I mean, that's got to be, we have to postulate when we're talking about the book of Revelation that some things are included, like it's not always just literary artistry. Like some of it's like, this is what happened. I mean, I think it all John saw all this thing, all of this, but it's like,
so here's all this lot, right? Basically there's this huge gang of people, 144,000. It's 12 times 12 times 1,000, and it's also from every tribe and tongue and nation. So it's from everywhere, everywhere.
Yeah.
So his mate comes up to him and says, "There's a lot going on here, right?" And John's like, "Yeah." I'd love to know what the message says. Actually, that'd be kind of funny. I might be able to pull it up.
I'll read while you do.
Oh yeah. Well, I got it.
You got it?
Yeah. Just then, one of the elders addressed me. "Who are these dressed in white robes, and where do they come from?" Taken aback, I said, "Oh, sir, I've no idea, but you must know."
Oh, sir, I've got no. I like what he. I like the ESV. Sir, you know.
You know.
You
Come
know.
on. I think it. Yeah, I'm reading it more like, "Come on, we both know. Come on,
Sir, what you know.
What you're saying, you know."
Yeah.
Anyway, he said to me, "These are the ones coming out of the great tribulation, and they've washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb." So this is who they are and how they got here. They've come out of the great tribulation. Well, we've looked at that a lot, haven't we? As a word,
thlipsis, pressure, and no, they're coming out. Not they have come out or they will come out. They are coming. Continuous.
Yep.
Tense.
That's important. I mean, you would see this the article, and great tribulation, perhaps a sense of one final event. It's a possibility. I mean, people talk about a great tribulation as a sort of final event before the end of all things.
Yeah.
And scholars and actually many believers disagree about whether Christians are somehow raptured before that or in the middle of it or at the end of it, or actually just whatever, and it's more symbolic than a literal time. But intriguingly, there's a couple of references that might be helpful. John 16, Jesus, "I've said these things that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation. But take heart, I have overcome the world." I have overcome the world in the past tense.
Past tense.
So you're going to have tribulation, but I have overcome. In Acts, it says, "Through many tribulations we must enter the kingdom of God." So even if there is some final tribulation that's specifically distinct, that is not to say there are not tribulations right here and right now. There are. And I think if you were to tell some oppressed pastor who's just been dragged through the streets and had his family tortured because he shared the gospel, that somehow he wasn't in a tribulation, I think he would say to you, "Well, steady on, old chap. I think actually this is pretty rough."
And John, it is not a viable thing to see the Great Tribulation as merely a future thing, because that's inconsistent with the literal reading of the book, because John calls himself your brother in this is chapter 1, verse 9. "I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation.
Okay.
And the kingdom and the patient
Very
endurance that
helpful.
are in Jesus.
Very helpful. I hadn't seen that.
He sees himself as participating in the tribulation.
And it says
the tribulation.
So, there's a wonderful William Barclay quote that Kat has written on the whiteboard in our downstairs bathroom. She writes, by the way, this is why I think girls are more godly than boys, and that's they sit down to use the bathroom. So they have more time to look at what Christian words you've written on the whiteboard opposite your loo.
Boys do sometimes.
Yeah, but not as many, which is why girls are holier.
Oh, yeah. I don't have a whiteboard in my bathroom, though.
Why not?
Because there's a window kind of right across. There's not a good wall for it. And like the other wall would be like right
ceiling?
to the center, right? I have a skylight, actually.
Floor.
I could just write with marker on the floor. Yeah,
Yeah, I would. I recommend it.
Thanks.
I think it's a really, really cool place. I love that Kat does this. She has this little whiteboard opposite the loo on the wall, and you can just and she'll write little quotes. She'll do a Bible quote and a kind of scholar quote underneath it, and she just wipes it down and puts a new one up every few months. This is quote of the month. William Barclay said, Jesus promised his disciples 3 things: that they would be completely fearless, absurdly happy, and in constant trouble. And there you go. You alluded to this in your sermon wonderfully. We're in thlipsis, and in fact, actually, the more we advance the kingdom of God and serve Christ, the more thlipsis will come. The more we're going to get squeezed and punched and poked and shoved.
The pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are ones coming out of the Great Tribulation. That might, in some final sense, be a thing, but it's also here and now for certain, and we can prove that from Scripture.
Yeah.
So, who are these? It's people who've basically come through the rough stuff of this world,
and they've washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. They have been cleansed by the shedding of blood at the cross.
They've been purified.
The crucified Christ's blood is what has purified them.
Yeah.
That's atonement.
It is atonement. They've been plunged and laundered. It's a clothing word.
It's also sanctification that has happened through the cross.
Right.
Their righteousness comes from the cross.
It does.
I just want to like fixate on that. Just like if we were putting Paul's terms onto it, justification and sanctification all are from the blood of the Lamb.
This is so important. I get where you're going with this now.
Like that is what has brought them through the Great Tribulation.
Preach it. This is important. This is so important.
They're not. Their spiritual. It's not that they've washed their robes and made them white through the spiritual disciplines.
This is so important. I don't know. Like yes, this is so important. You're not saved by the cross and then maintaining your salvation through your works.
No, justification and sanctification are both fueled by the same person, the same event.
Right.
You are sanctified by the grace of Christ, by faith in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
You are justified by faith in Christ.
Yes.
And it's the blood of the Lamb that pulls them, that seals us, and then it's the blood of the Lamb who preserves us through the Great Tribulation.
Yes.
That's what John is. That's clearly like the key thing. It's the Lamb. Anyways.
Yeah. So they've come through all of this tribulation, and by the washing of their sin away through the atoning work of the blood of the Lamb, whose blood has this unique ability to make that which is soiled clean and white, which is extraordinary, because we all know that blood is a thing that stains, and yet the blood of Christ actually is a thing that propitiates, that is to say, blots up the stain.
Better than OxyClean.
Better than OxyClean. It absorbs and takes away.
It's a good sermon title.
Therefore, it would be. It's a very Ethan Magnus sermon title. Therefore, they are before the throne of God. So I think it's that because of this, because they are purified, they are where they should be, which is in the place that would otherwise be extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
They've approached the mercy seat, not the judgment seat, because they've been purified. And the judgment's done. It's transferred and taken away. And so they're through it. They're through the tribulation, they're through the judgment, and they're clean. And so what do? They serve him day and night in his temple, and he who sits on the throne will shelter them with his presence. Beautiful image of being sheltered and safe by the throne. This dangerous place of judgment and power is actually a safe place for them because they're his, and he's sheltering them. Let's have a little look at the word.
Oh, yeah. Is it tabernacle?
Tabernacle.
He tabernacles them with his presence.
Yeah.
They hunger no more, neither thirst anymore. There's some Isaiah 55 in there. The sun shall not strike them. That's Psalm 121. Nor any scorching heat. For the Lamb is in the midst of the throne, in the middle of the throne.
Because, and whose throne is it? God's throne. And where's the Lamb? He's on the throne. Therefore, who is the Lamb?
Yeah.
God.
That Richard Bauckham has this whole chapter in his theology of the book of Revelation about this, because people get confused by, well, wait, you're talking about God and then you talk about the Lamb. Did John not think that Jesus is God? And he just goes through all of this and about how John is very intentionally saying Jesus is God.
Yes.
The Lamb is God. He is as closely identified with God as you could possibly express.
And that the Son is not the Father and the Son is the Father.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And this is so cool. Just as blood washes, this is it's an odd thing. The lamb shall be the shepherd, which is also an odd thing. The shepherd is a lamb. That's so awesome. What do shepherds do? They guide. They protect the sheep.
They guide lambs.
They protect lambs. They birth lambs.
Yeah.
Don't they? Depending on the breed of sheep.
Yeah.
Some sheep you can leave to it. Some sheep you actually have to physically pull the lamb out quite often.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some sheep are just more robust than others. But yeah, many breeds of sheep, you the shepherd, will be pulling that lamb.
Oh, interesting. I knew a shepherdess. Worked with a shepherdess at Trader Joe's, actually. She was a part-time shepherdess. And I said, and she was doing a grad school dissertation about the mutton industry.
Oh, wow.
About sheep. I knew all about him. And I said, she knew I was a pastor. And I was like, all right, listen, you got to give me some nuggets about sheep.
Give me
and
some lamb
shepherding.
nuggets.
And she said, the first thing to know is that sheep just have this remarkable tendency to just die randomly. They're really fragile and really stupid.
They really are.
And so they need to be, when they say we all like sheep have gone astray, that's pretty right on.
There's a breed of sheep in the Lake District called a Herdwick, and they have a unique ability to be on the hef. So they're free range. They have no boundaries, and they stay put. And it's been bred into them for well over 1,000 years to be where they should be. And there was a farming crisis, a disease, and the sheep had to be culled, and they kind of lost the ability. It's fascinating. But these, and you would see them hiking all around the lakes. You'd see sheep doing sheep stuff.
Yeah.
And these are the best, the Herdwick, in my view.
Yeah.
And even they were just constantly dying. They get wet and they get cold and they lie down and they just can't get up.
Yeah.
They physically can't put themselves back on their own feet.
Because they get so heavy?
And they need a shepherd. Because they get so heavy and they need a shepherd just to come and pick them up.
Yeah.
If you pick them up, they survive. They don't need any medical attention. They just need to be picked up.
Wow. That'll preach.
And yet, if you don't pick them up, they die. And so a lot of these shepherds are going around in the Lake District, just hiking up and down, putting sheep back on their feet.
Wow.
But here, the shepherd is the lamb. The weakest in the flock, the newborn, is their shepherd.
Who's been
An
sacrificed.
Extraordinary thing. Yeah, who not only has been sacrificed as a sacrificial lamb, he's now protecting them.
This is the weird thing. Revelation does this all the time. I think it forces you to consider the paradoxes of the Christian gospel with imagery like this, because you're like, wait, the lamb is the shepherd. Wait, blood is what washing things white.
And this is why that interpretation of Revelation that's always looking for secret codes. No, this means this. How do you get that thought process out of this? The lamb is the shepherd. Plainly, we're being shown something quite extraordinary here.
Yeah, I think you kind of have. Sometimes I think maybe we do so much interpretive work, and we really just need to let the scripture just wash over us a little bit. And like, let these images work on us.
2 water images and we'll finish.
Yeah.
He'll guide them to springs of living water. Interestingly, although we'll never thirst again, that doesn't mean to say we just have one drink and then we're set, but we'll continually drink from this stream of living water. Continually drinking in eternity, this life-giving, refreshing water.
Yeah.
And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. This is one of the most important phrases for anyone who's grieving and bereaved.
Yeah.
There isn't the sense that God winds back the clock and unmakes that tragedy. But there is a sense in which he perfectly comforts you.
Yeah.
The tears stop. The drinking does not stop, but the tears do.
I actually see that a little bit differently now, I think. I see it as God, in order to wipe away a tear has to come first. And and grief requires the shedding of tears in order to, there's something extremely healthy. You almost have to get it out. And that can be difficult sometimes to get it out. So when it says God will wipe away every tear from their eyes, there's this idea about, I just think about being safe to cry all the tears, all of us being safe before the presence of God to cry all the tears that we've been holding in our whole lives. And then he wipes them away.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful, so powerful.
Get your gun and bet your life if you're a gambler. And you draw dead man's hand against the pale rider.
Well, this has been a podcast of Christ Church Fox Chapel.
Down into Mexico.
I'm so glad that you would listen. We'd love to have you on the podcast sometime.
Yeah.
And as the Pale Rider would himself say,
it's all the same.
Thanks for stopping by.
It's one more killing to the man that has no name.
Stay classy, Fox Chapel.